Thomas stood by the front door of their suburban home, his car keys clutched tight, his expression difficult to read. "Are you really sure about this, Eleanor?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. A long, heavy silence stretched between us. Finally, a slow, almost imperceptible nod. "He'll be at the Grand Suites downtown." I stepped forward, pressing a gentle, final kiss to his cheek. Then, without allowing myself to look back, I turned. The young man waiting just inside the doorway, Liam, was silent, utterly certain. I met his steady gaze, a jolt of adrenaline shooting through me as I gestured for him to follow me towards the bedroom. This was it. The point of no return. Before we dive in, take a quick second to like this video and subscribe. It's easy and free. Your support means the world and helps me keep sharing stories like this. Thank you. Now, back to the story. Liam's breathing eventually evened out beside me, a soft, steady rhythm filling the quiet room. But I wasn't focused on him anymore. My attention was drawn to the profound silence that now settled around us. It was the thick, uncomfortable silence that had become a permanent resident in my marriage long before Thomas ever drifted off to sleep. The sheets felt strangely cool against my skin. Despite his body warmth nearby moments ago, I could still feel the phantom weight of his hand on my hip from earlier in the night. But it held no significance for me now. The comforting warmth I once craved from his touch had evaporated. It wasn't warmth I was seeking anymore. It wasn't comfort. I craved fire. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time, years ago, when every touch, every kiss from Thomas was electric, a spark that ignited something deep within me, something primal and intensely alive. But now, it felt like muscle memory, a routine performed out of habit. His touch was gentle, his body familiar, against mine, but the passion, the intensity I yearned for was absent. The deepening lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair, they were constant reminders of the relentless march of time. I loved him. I truly did. But I needed something more. I closed my eyes. The persistent ache inside me refused to dissipate. I loved Thomas. That would never change. But I needed something beyond the comfortable routine, beyond the casual displays of affection that had become our norm. There was a profound hunger within me. And no matter how many times I told myself it would eventually fade, it clung to me stubbornly. It wasn't his fault. He was tired, older now, his energy levels naturally diminished, but there was something vital missing, something I couldn't bring myself to ask him for anymore. I turned my head slightly to look at him. His face was peaceful in sleep, the lines etched by years of smiles and worries now softened. The gentle snore that sometimes escaped him only served to emphasize the growing distance between us. I could still feel the lingering heat of his body nearby, but it failed to stir anything within me. It used to, a long time ago, but now it only amplified the emptiness I felt. I needed more. I could no longer ignore this craving. The silence wasn't just because of his deep sleep. It was the deafening silence of things left unsaid, needs unaddressed. And in that silence, a stark realization dawned on me. It wasn't just Thomas who had changed. I had changed too. And something, inevitably, had to give. I woke early the next morning, slipping out of bed with deliberate quietness, taking care not to disturb Thomas. He remained deep in sleep. A plan, hazy but resolute, began to solidify in my mind. It was a plan I knew I had to execute today. I padded downstairs and brewed a fresh pot of coffee, the steam rising as my thoughts raced. The hunger inside me, this yearning for something more intense, could no longer be suppressed. Thomas, bless him, simply couldn't satisfy it anymore. No matter how much he might wish he could, I loved him, but the need persisted. As I finished my coffee, Thomas finally appeared at the bottom of the stairs, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. I took a steadying breath and offered a casual greeting. "Good morning." "Morning. Eleanor, what's on your mind?" "You seem different," he asked, his intuition picking up on the subtle shift in my demeanor. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, then commented casually, "I saw a young guy jogging past the house this morning. He was in such incredible shape. The sheer energy he had, it was quite something to see, you know?" Thomas looked at me over the rim of his coffee cup, his brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. Yeah, I guess I can't exactly keep up with that pace anymore." I didn't miss the slight discomfort in his tone. It was exactly the reaction I had hoped for. "It's funny, isn't it?" I continued, pressing gently. "How people our age can just lose that kind of vibrant energy? I suppose it's just a natural part of life. Some of us just don't have that spark anymore." Thomas glanced at me again, a hint of an amused smile playing on his lips, though his eyes held a trace of unease. "Well, not man. I of us are in our absolute prime. That's for sure. You're not as old as I am, though." His voice carried that familiar, knowing tone, as if he already acutely felt the age gap between us. But there was a definite undercurrent of discomfort behind it. I could feel him mentally retreating into the comforting safety of denial. But I wasn't about to let that derail me now. I leaned back in my chair, allowing the silence to return, letting the seed of the idea take root. The thought of him eventually having to confront my unspoken needs felt increasingly inevitable. As night fell, the usual quiet in the bedroom felt even heavier than before. Thomas, absorbed in his phone, seemed oblivious to the palpable shift in the atmosphere. The hunger inside me, that persistent craving, only seemed to intensify a hunger that Thomas simply couldn't satisfy anymore. I turned to him, trying to keep my voice light and casual. "Thomas, I think I'll take care of things tonight. You don't need to wear yourself out." He looked up from his phone, his eyebrows drawing together in confusion. "What do you mean, Eleanor? Are you not feeling well?" I offered him a small, reassuring smile. "No, not at all, dear. I don't want you to worry about me. I can manage perfectly fine." Thomas paused, his gaze lingering on me as he tried to decipher the deeper meaning behind my words. "Are you sure?" His voice held a note of hesitation, as if he sensed there was much more to this than a simple statement about my well-being. I shrugged lightly, feigning nonchalance. "Yes, I'm quite sure. You've had a demanding day. It's better if you just relax and don't exert yourself." He didn't argue further. The confusion lingered in his eyes, but he didn't press the issue. Instead, he leaned back against his pillow, giving me the physical and emotional space I needed to proceed. I waited until his breathing settled into a deep, steady rhythm before turning onto my side. Away from him, I let my hand drift down, gently brushing against the cool sheets, feeling the warmth of my own skin against the fabric. The tension in the air was thick, charged with unspoken needs and desires. I needed him to sense it, to feel the weight of it. Without me having to utter a single word, I slowly ran my fingers down my body, allowing the internal ache to communicate louder than any words could. I wasn't angry. I was simply profoundly frustrated by the chasm between what I needed and what he could provide. He had his limitations, and I, it seemed, had needs that extended beyond them. The physical space between us felt like an unbearable vastness, a constant, painful reminder of what we once shared and what could never be again. I closed my eyes, allowing my hand to slip between my legs. The need for release had become a constant thrum, an ever-present, nagging ache that I could no longer suppress. It wasn't merely physical, it was a primal yearning for something I hadn't felt in years, a forgotten part of myself. As I moved my fingers over myself, the stark realization hit me again. Thomas never seemed to notice this side of me anymore, this intensity I held within. He was asleep beside me, completely unaware of my need, of the desperate craving for something more than the comfortable, predictable rhythm of our life. It was undeniable. The fiery passion that once blazed between us had dwindled to embers, and no matter how hard he might try, it seemed incapable of being reignited by him. The contrast between the gentle, slow exploration of my own body and the vast emotional distance between us was stark and poignant. It felt as though I was trying to prove to myself that I could still feel something, anything that could make me feel truly alive again. And this was the only way left to do it. I allowed the tension to build deliberately, taking my time, savoring each building wave. When the release finally arrived, I stilled for a long moment, my eyes squeezed shut. The intense ache within me receded as the moment passed, but I knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. I had started down a path, and I could feel that he was starting to take notice. All it would require was time and persistence. I continued with my subtle plan over the next few days, allowing the unspoken idea to simmer between us through small, carefully placed comments, a deliberate, subtle distance, and quiet, indirect hints. By the third night, the situation felt less like a possibility and more like an inevitability. As Thomas began to drift off beside me that night, I quietly turned toward him, letting my fingers slowly and deliberately trail across my own body again. I needed to keep the hunger alive, the craving that he could no longer satisfy. Just as I began to surrender to my need, I heard him stir beside me. His voice, quiet and heavy with unspoken emotion, broke the silence. Are you sure about this, Eleanor? He asked, his words weighted with hesitation and pain. I know I'm not the man I used to be. I stopped my movements, turning to face him fully in the dim light. I know I'm not enough for you anymore, he said softly, his eyes filled with a painful mixture of sadness and resigned acceptance. You deserve someone who can keep up with you, who can give you what you need. His words hung in the air between us, heavy and irreversible. This was the precise moment I had been orchestrating, waiting for. I kept my voice calm, measured, not wanting to appear too eager or calculating. I mean, it's not quite that simple, Thomas, I replied, trying to sound as if I was genuinely wrestling with the complex reality of the situation. I don't want you to ever think that I'm unhappy with you. You have always been a good husband to me, Thomas. Thomas looked at me, his face etched with uncertainty and vulnerability. But I know things have changed between us. Eleanor, I don't want you to feel like you're missing out on something more, something different. I hesitated for just a moment, carefully studying his expression. I have thought about it, Thomas, I said, my tone deliberate and steady. I suppose, yes, I do need something more, but truly, it's not a reflection on you, Thomas. You are still everything to me in so many ways. Thomas let out a slow, deep breath, the sound like air escaping a deflating balloon, as if he had been holding it captive for a very long time. So you think it would help if we found someone else, someone younger? He could barely bring himself to say the words. I allowed a long beat of silence to pass, pretending to weigh the monumental implications of his suggestion with great care. Maybe, I said finally, my voice remaining calm and even. But it absolutely has to be the right situation, Thomas. It can't just be anyone. It can't be rushed into blindly. He nodded slowly, a flicker of relief mixed with profound sadness in his eyes. Okay, Eleanor, if you truly think that's the path we need to explore. Im okay with it? I offered him a soft, gentle smile, feeling an enormous, unexpected weight lift from my shoulders. This was it. The plan, in its strange, unconventional way, was working. The plan was now firmly in place. Over the next few days, we navigated the complex logistics and found someone suitable, a younger man, fit and confident, someone who exuded a quiet competence and wouldn't ask intrusive questions. He was, in essence, a stranger, but that anonymity made him the perfect candidate for this unique arrangement. We meticulously ironed out the details, the timing, the boundaries, the expectations. Everything was agreed upon and clear. Thomas didn't speak much about the practicalities of it, but I could acutely sense his discomfort simmering beneath his quiet demeanor. I wasn't entirely sure if his unease stemmed from the unconventional nature of the situation itself, or from a deeper, unspoken awareness of what was inevitably coming, but his silence was incredibly eloquent. It didn't truly matter now. This was the path we had chosen together. Tonight was the appointed night. I turned to Thomas as he stood by the door, his hands buried deep in his pockets, a habitual gesture when he was feeling uncertain. "Are you sure you're all right with this, Thomas?" I asked again, the words sounding more like a desperate attempt at reassurance for both of us than an actual question. He nodded curtly, his eyes meeting mine for only a fleeting second before darting away. "It'll be at the Grand Suites. You two do what you need to do." His voice was steady, controlled, but I could clearly hear the tight layer of tension stretched just beneath the surface. I smiled gently, a genuine smile this time, attempting to alleviate the heavy atmosphere that had settled between us. "It's going to be all right, Thomas. I think this is going to be good for us." He offered no verbal response, only another tight, almost imperceptible nod, before turning and walking out the door. Seconds later, the doorbell chimed softly. I opened the door to find him standing there, Liam, the man we had chosen. His presence was immediately striking a potent mix of eager anticipation and contained control. His confidence was almost tangible, radiating from him in quiet waves. I gave him a simple nod of acknowledgement and turned, walking deliberately toward the bedroom at the end of the hall, feeling a shiver of both nervousness and intense anticipation ripple through me. He followed me in silence, and I heard the soft, definitive click of the bedroom door closing behind us. It was just the two of us now. This was it, the moment we had both come for. The bedroom door shut decisively behind us, sealing us within a space that suddenly felt like its own self-contained world, separate from everything else. My heart hammered against my ribs as I finally turned to face him. There was no hesitation in his direct gaze, no questioning of why we were here in this moment. He knew exactly what I needed, and I knew, with a certainty that was both thrilling and terrifying, that he was here to provide it. Before I could even fully process the situation, his hands were on me, his touch firm, yet incredibly deliberate. My breath hitched in my throat as he began to strip away the last remaining barriers between us, peeling away not just fabric, but layers of hesitation, of self-imposed restraint that I hadn't realized I carried. His hands roamed over my body with an intense, focused exploration, discovering and rediscovering places that had remained untouched, dormant, for far too long. His warmth ignited something deep within me, a slow, smoldering fire that had been banked for years. The room was dimly lit, shadows stretching and dancing across the large bed as he gently guided me towards it. His hands traced a path along my thighs, his lips following the trail left by his fingertips, his touch sending intoxicating waves of anticipation coursing through me. A deep, slow heat began to build from within as he settled between my legs, his mouth finding places that had been aching, desperately craving attention. The sheer warmth of his body against mine, the unhurried, deliberate way he took his time exploring me, sent delicious shivers radiating through every part of me. My fingers instinctively tangled themselves in his hair as my breath quickened, my body arching instinctively in response to the incredibly skillful way he explored my most sensitive places. I gasped aloud, my fingers clutching tightly at the sheets beneath me as pleasure began to coil tighter and tighter inside me. The intense contrast between the careful patience of his touch and the sheer, undeniable hunger in his movements was utterly overwhelming. My pulse pounded in my ears, my thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm as he pushed me closer and closer to the edge of sensation. I held on to the building intensity, allowing it to carry me higher, further, until I simply couldn't hold back anymore. The release washed over me in powerful waves, and I let out a soft, breathless cry as the tightly wound tension unraveled completely inside me. He lifted his head slightly, his gaze meeting mine with a knowing, shared look, as if he had just unearthed a secret desire I had kept hidden even from myself. I barely had a moment to see. Catch my breath, to fully recover before he took my hand, his silent command urging me forward. His meaning was clear, undeniable. It was my turn now. I followed his unspoken lead, lowering myself before him, my hands tentatively grazing over his strong, toned frame. He felt firm and solid beneath my touch, his body thrumming with a controlled, potent energy. My lips brushed lightly against his skin as I slowly began to explore him, savoring the low, deep sound that rumbled from his chest in response. I took my time, deliberately letting my movements tease, allowing the anticipation to build steadily until his breathing grew heavier, more ragged, his fingers threading themselves tightly through my hair, urging me on. A deep groan escaped his lips, sending a thrilling jolt down my spine. In that moment, I felt an incredible surge of power, knowing that I possessed the ability to unravel him just as completely and skillfully as he had unraveled me moments before. But he wasn't someone who would easily cede control for long. In one swift, fluid motion, he lifted me to my feet, expertly guiding me back towards the waiting bed. My pulse raced as he turned me gently, positioning me before him, my back to his front. My breath caught sharply in my throat as I felt the solid warmth of his body behind me, his hands gripping my hips with gentle firmness, holding me perfectly in place. The first deep, deliberate movement into me sent a shockwave of intense sensation through my entire body, and I gasped, my fingers instinctively clutching at the sheets on the bed. His rhythm started slow, incredibly deliberate, giving me ample time to feel every single inch of him, to savor the sensation of being utterly filled. But then, with a sudden surge of energy, he quickened his pace, his movements becoming relentless, powerful. Each subsequent motion sent another spark of intense heat through me, building higher and higher with dizzying speed until I was completely lost within the swirling vortex of sensation. My body tightened, contracting around him. Every nerve ending seemed to ignite simultaneously as the pressure building within me crested once more. I shattered under him, my breath catching in ragged gasps as waves of intense pleasure rolled through me, leaving me trembling. But he didn't stop. He wasn't finished yet. Before I could fully catch my breath, before the echoes of the last climax had even faded, he turned me over, gently laying me back against the soft mattress. His gaze met mine, filled with something both intensely primal and unyielding. He moved again, deeper this time, his hands gripping my waist, holding me steady as he pushed me past the edge, coaxing my body towards another release. I gasped aloud, completely overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the sensation, by the determined way he wouldn't let up, wouldn't let me rest until he had drawn every last ounce of pleasure from me, coaxing my body to respond again and again. By the third time, I was trembling uncontrollably, my body utterly spent, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I had gotten precisely what I had want. Ed, what I had desperately needed for so long. As I lay there, still feeling the lingering aftershocks of everything we had experienced together, he pulled me close, his lips pressing a soft, lingering kiss against my skin. For the first time in years, I felt completely, utterly satisfied. After that night, everything between Thomas and me changed, not in a dramatic, earth-shattering explosion, but in the quiet, subtle shifts that occur when an undeniable truth settles into the space between two people. The air in our home felt different, perceptibly lighter, more open, less burdened by unspoken tension. He didn't pry for details about the night, and I didn't offer them. But in the mornings after, when he would return home from the hotel, there was no lingering tension, no palpable guilt hanging between us, just a quiet, profound understanding. It didn't take long for this unique arrangement to evolve into a regular routine. Once a week, like clockwork, we followed the same unspoken ritual. Thomas would find a plausible reason to be elsewhere for the evening, and I would welcome someone new into our home, someone who could provide the intense physical connection I craved. It wasn't solely about the physical act itself, although that was undeniably a crucial part. It was also about the energy, the thrilling anticipation, the potent feeling of being truly desired, the way it made me feel vibrant and alive again. And Thomas, despite his initial hesitation and obvious discomfort, had gradually come to accept it, perhaps even, in his own way, to prefer it. He never explicitly said the words, but I could see it clearly in the way he looked at me, the quiet relief in his eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement that he no longer had to carry the burden of trying to be something he simply wasn't anymore, that he no longer had to feel inadequate. And in return, I was undeniably happier, more content within myself and within our marriage. Our marriage wasn't dissolving. It was, in a strange, unexpected turn, evolving into something entirely new, something neither of us could have ever predicted. And so, this became our life. A new rhythm established itself. A quiet, unconventional understanding settled between us. There was no jealousy, no resentment, at least not outwardly, just a simple, perhaps radical agreement. I would get what I needed, and Thomas would never again have to feel like he wasn't enough for me in the way I needed. It wasn't traditional by any definition, but for us, in our unique circumstances, it worked. And in the end, wasn't that all that truly mattered? Some people say that sharing in a marriage can ultimately make the bond stronger. Others are convinced it's an irreversible step towards its eventual demise. What are your thoughts? Could you ever consider or agree to an arrangement like this in your own relationship? Or do you believe it's a line that should absolutely never be crossed under any circumstances? Let's discuss it in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling or thought-provoking, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon so you won't miss any of our future stories. See you in the next one.